Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, November 22nd, 2024. Trump wants to abolish the income tax. That's the title of a post on Peter St. Onge's Substack. Now, Peter is a visiting fellow in the Thomas A. Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies and the Mark A. Kalakatranis Fellow in Economic Freedom at the Heritage Foundation. He holds a Ph.D. in economics from George Mason University and a bachelor's degree in economics and political science from McGill University. Here's a summary of Dr. St. Onge's article. President-elect Trump has announced that he wants to eliminate the income tax. So, what happens if we end the income tax? Laying off all 93,654 IRS agents so you can keep every dollar you earn? Will Washington have to fund itself with bake sales? Well, the income tax currently costs the American people $2.4 trillion a year. Trump has proposed to replace that revenue with tariffs. Now, I'd guess near term, this will lead to a 20% increase in the economy, so about a $15,000 raise for the typical family. The projected $15,000 raise comes from one of my favorite papers in economics by Christina and David Romer that estimates that every dollar in taxes reduces GDP by $2 to $3. It keeps getting better, because going by low-tax countries today, or America before the income tax, we might double our annual economic growth. Every company on earth will try to move to America because we would be the mother of all tax havens. So, a 5% annual GDP growth would be the new normal. And your kids would be 3 times richer than you, as it used to work in America, plus the IRS is gone. In conclusion, while many of us may disagree with using tariffs to replace the income tax, and Dr. St. Onge is not addressing replacing payroll taxes, his post does make some very interesting points. Now, none of us are surprised that there's growing support for eliminating the income tax in the IRS. All of us have had this reaction from friends and neighbors, or even strangers, when we explain the fair tax to them, and they make a comment like, "Hey, I'm for that." However, the elites have demanded that their press minions and talking heads continuously explain why, even though it's hated by most Americans, the income payroll tax system and the IRS are essential and must be retained. Now that more and more people are enthusiastically endorsing getting rid of the income tax, the genie is out of the bottle and people are just not accepting the frantic murmurings of the elite and their minions. It's time for all Americans to support President Trump's goal of eliminating the income tax. Elon Musk has promised to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. If he comes anywhere close to that goal, that makes the income tax all the easier to replace, as that's $2 trillion less than any other alternate revenue source we'll have to extract from the American people. As Dr. St. Onge states, when the income payroll tax system is gone, we will have every company in the world wanting to relocate to the United States. This will create tens of millions of high-paying U.S. jobs and economic growth unlike anything we've ever seen before. Our children and grandchildren will live in a country where, if they put forth the effort, they'll have a much better standard of living than their parents and grandparents. We now have an opportunity to put our country on a path toward unparalleled prosperity, and it's an opportunity that may not come again in our lifetime. When the income tax is gone, people in all demographic groups and across the entire political spectrum will benefit greatly. All of us must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the fair tax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent efforts from all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we also need your grassroots assistance. Please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. Please call your congressional representatives and ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If they don't support the fair tax, ask them why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the fair tax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution: pass the fair tax. Now, why would D.C. pass the fair tax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing or investing $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to fairtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the fair tax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at fairtax.org.